Welcome to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social podcast, and I am so glad to be here. And my promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and your social media marketing, because after all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? I know I do. And I am really stoked today to have Michelle Ross with me. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And for our audience, could you just tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am an immigration attorney. I practice in Stamford, Connecticut with the firm Benjamin Golden Troy PC. And my primary focus is employment-based immigration. So I work with companies looking to hire and keep foreign-born workers and making sure their visas are all in order.
So my question to you really quickly is there a lot of this, and when should they get to you in the process?
The usual answer for me is the sooner the better. I like even talking with recruiters who are out there speaking with candidates, because you want to, for a company that's hiring, you want to have your due diligence and your plan set, well before the planned start date with an employee. So I'm willing to talk to people even when they're planning for recruitment, how to screen and know when something like this might come up for them.
So the best case scenario that happens, give me an example of something that went really well.
Sure. I can give you a classic scenario, is something like this. A company is doing recruiting for a position, and they may even be doing recruiting, let's say, on campus with schools for recent graduates, either bachelor's or master's or higher degrees. And they already know what kind of roles they're looking for. They've talked to me about what the role looks like. And I can kind of fit it into a visa category. And then they're screening candidates. And I say, yes, this candidate is a good match, because the match has to be the role, what's required of it. Does it fit a visa category? The candidate, are they eligible for that visa category? So a really, typical smooth process is we've thought about that. They're doing recruitment. They find a candidate who needs a visa, who's, let's say, on a student visa right now and needs to move into a work visa. And they reach out to me, and we plan for that transition from student visa to work visa, which then down the road, if things work out and they're still working with the company, could then transition into a green card years down the road. That's a classic, nice, easy, transition throughout, where you're planning well in advance.
How long does a student visa go for, and how long does the work visa go for usually?
So it depends on the student and their area of study, but typically a student visa is valid for as long as it takes them to graduate, as long as they're enrolled in school. And then most students get at minimum a year after graduation of work authorization based on their student visa. A lot of students get actually up to 3 years to basically get their first job in the field under their student visa. And then you have 3 years to plan to transition to the next truly work-based visa, which oftentimes is an H-1B. The maximum on those is 6 years.
Okay. So here's a question for you. So it's like, do you have a lot of people that will move from, the student to the work visa to the green card? And then what's next? Do they move to citizenship, or how does that actually work?
Yeah, the next step for once you have a green card, for most people, after you have a green card for 5 years, you're eligible to apply for citizenship through the process that's called naturalization. So that is really the final step. And I'd say most people who have been in the U.S. that long and have their green card want to naturalize. So that usually happens close to the 5-year mark. It takes time to get it approved, but that's the end game for sure for most people.
Now, back in the day, I worked with an RN who went through this process of naturalization, and she had to have a sponsor. Is that still the same way, or you don't have to have a sponsor anymore when you become a citizen?
So to become a citizen, you don't need a sponsor, but it's all those steps beforehand that you do need a sponsor. So that's why I work with employers, because you're either have an employer be your sponsor for your temporary visa and your green card, or you have a family member that could sponsor you for a green card at some point too. But yeah, you need a sponsor all the way up until that last application, which is the citizenship one. You don't need a sponsor at that point.
And do you take care of the naturalization process too for your clients? Or
I do. Yep.
Wow. So, I mean, I have a question that's kind of an interesting question, at least I think so. So there's probably tons of immigration lawyers out there, and probably tons that work with employers. What separates you from the others?
That's a great question. So I've been doing this for over 10 years now. And I did make business my primary focus for much of that. So in that sense, I think I do separate myself from the immigration lawyers who are going to do a little bit of everything. But also in my subset of business and immigration lawyers or employment-based lawyers, there are a lot of big firms that kind of feel like a visa factory. They're very volume based, and the service that clients get feels very volume based. And for me, it's a smaller firm, and I'm willing to work with smaller companies, who may not do 100 cases a year. Maybe they only have one or two, but I'm willing to put in the time with them and work on a smaller scale, and be that primary contact for them as the attorney, as opposed to them interfacing with a platform and a paralegal for most of the process. So I think that sets me apart, as I'm willing to spend more time with a client who's looking for that value and having an attorney available.
Right. So, you've been in business now for 10 years. You've been doing this for 10 years, and a lot of you're responsible for bringing in probably clients, and you have to network and get clients. What do you enjoy most about doing that? Finding your own clients and, being in business, sort of being your own type of person and your own boss a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I guess this sounds cliche, but I do love meeting and connecting with people. So, I like that just for the interaction that it brings. But I think in the sense of, bringing in business and networking, what do I love? I love most when I find the people who need my expertise, and I can really help them find solutions that are not easy for them to find on their own. So it feels good when I've made that right connection. I mean, I don't think anyone loves networking just for this, with the pressure of I got to get some cases in, or I need to bring this business, right? It's that sweet spot where you find people who really do actually need the expertise you have, because you can really easily bring value and make their day better, the process better. So I think when I do find that connection, it's pretty satisfying for sure.
Yeah, and you never know that one person that you meet may know someone.
That's right.
That I always get excited about that when I get a call from someone and they said, I know somebody that recommended me to you. They mentioned your name and I wanted to find out. I mean, that excites me because it means that people know me and they're talking about me. So it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Here's a question that nobody asks. And it's kind of like, we always talk about the glamour of being in our own businesses, or the glamour of networking, and the glamour of, I'm an attorney and I'm in a firm and all that kind of stuff. But we never talk about the challenges. And what would you say your biggest challenge is in being an attorney, and also in being, bringing in clients and all that other stuff that goes along with it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think being an attorney is not glamorous at all. Let's put that out there. You can't escape putting the time into your work. Yeah, I mean, no one knows that when they're going into law school, but you learn it pretty quickly. But I think that the biggest challenges in practicing law are, realizing that you are the person who's interacting with people when they're making some of the biggest decisions, in their lives, for the case of immigrants. And also you're working on cases for companies like I do that really do affect big aspects of someone's life, whether they can stay and work or they want to stay and work. Finding ways to make difficult judgment calls and decisions about how a case moves forward or what kind of strategy you follow brings a lot of stress and pressure. So it's challenging to find ways to cope with that in a way that is sustainable for you and for your clients, I think.
Absolutely. Tell the audience something that most people wouldn't know about you, but that's pretty interesting.
Oh boy. Well, one thing that's interesting about me, and I'm far removed from it now, but my original dreams and hopes for a career path was that I would be a professional ballet dancer. And I trained in that all the way through college. In fact, I was hedging bets. I was doing political science and dance majors because I didn't know where I wanted to go. So I think my first love for dance actually informs a lot of what I do today, surprisingly, like the discipline and the drive that I have in my legal practice started back in ballet. So I don't think a lot of people know that about me so much in my professional career.
Wow, I wouldn't have guessed it. I was just I was talking with another person the other day, and they talk about how you need to stand out and be different, so people will notice you and want to do business with you. And there was the meme on social media that came to my head was they had a picture of like 5 girls that were ballet dancers, and one of them is like everybody's doing the form and everything's right, but the one on the end is like jumping up and down and not doing anything like the other girls. Yeah. And basically the meme is this, you want, be that person that stands out, something like that. But you made me think about that again. It's funny how that's come up twice now in my head. So who knows, it may mean something. I have a lot of people that are listening to this today that have, that they're either a startup business or they've been a seasoned in business for a long time, or they're thinking of switching careers and leaving and starting a new business. If there was one piece of advice that you could give them, what would that be?
Boy, well, I would say, I had worked for another firm for a number of years as an employee, and not too long ago decided to move on in a role that's more about managing my practice and much more entrepreneurial. Like I have to bring in my own business. And the one thing that I regret about that is that I didn't do it sooner. So for people thinking about doing it, there's not going to be a perfect time or a right time to do it. But, when I did it, the only regret I had was I should have done this years ago. So if you're really leaning towards that, don't wait for the magic moment. You got to make it happen, I think would be my advice. And I work with entrepreneurs all the time. And my other business advice is find the right experts to surround yourself with. You don't have to be an expert in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. It's again, it came up in another conversation I was having is, who you're spending time with, those 5 people, you are like the sum of it. You are, and it's interesting is like, I've noticed I've done a lot of networking like you do. And honestly, I met you through a networking group, and there are great people in that networking group. And so all to say is that, when you have somebody that's watching your back and that's out there in and day out, thinking about, somebody says something, I need an immigration lawyer, or I need a social media expert, or I need this. And all of a sudden they say, I know someone. How many people can say that? I know a lot of people that can't give me, sometimes I put out on social media, I need unless I'm in a mom's group, but I'm looking for a dentist, or something, and everybody's willing to help. So it's so great to have that community. So Michelle, I just want to thank you so much for being on my podcast. And if there's anyone out there that knows someone or is in need of an attorney and attorney advice when it comes to immigration, especially if they're a student in this area, is huge there's a lot of students, especially like at Bridgeport University and stuff. Yeah. Please, how would they get in touch with you?
So they can contact me through our firm website, which is bgtlawfirm.com. There's actually a chat function, which then comes directly to me, or they could reach out to me through LinkedIn. I'm on there, or call our office. We do intake on calls coming in, or oftentimes we'll take information and schedule a consultation. So the office number is 203-425-8500, and you'll either be talking to me or another attorney, for initial assessment.
Awesome. Well, I want to just thank you again for being on the Biz Gone Social podcast. And until next week, everyone, I'll see you later.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social podcast. Find us on Instagram at Biz Gone Social for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.